Well, let's turn our attention now over to the markets. Joining us here on the desk this week is Darin Fessler, Lakefront Futures and Options. Darin, good to see you.
Good to see you as well.
Harvest wrapping up across the country. How do you see things?
Yeah, it is wrapping up. There's still obviously still harvest being done in parts of the Dakotas, North Dakota. They've dealt with some little bit of snow issues, and same thing in Wisconsin. But overall, I mean, it's finishing up nicely. I mean, we're pretty much on pace with where we were the last 5 years. So I think now the question is, well, what do we do with the bushels we have, and where does the markets go from there? That's really kind of the questions are that I'm getting from producers anyway.
That's the question. You've got the answers. We'll unpack some of that here in the time we have. December corn sitting as you and I have our conversation today. 476 sideways trend. What's happening there?
Yeah, the momentum still remains bearish, and Lakefront we're much more technically driven type hedgers and traders, but as long as the momentum remains bearish here, momentum being the 5 and 9 day, if they're below that 20-day exponential, we're continuing to see a little bit trickle lower here. I mean, obviously we're still holding those mid-September lows, which we're going to have to watch very, very closely here because there is some higher volume levels below here, right around 460, maybe 450. But in general, I think the drag on corn is just simply because we don't have the great export market right now. Fundamentals remain weak. Brazil's coming off a good crop. I think the U.S. in general is coming off an okay crop. Record crop? No. A good crop? Decent crop? Probably. And we're going to know more with what the USDA says this week and how the reaction is in the weeks ahead here, but it feels like corn is just treading water right now, just spinning its wheels.
All right, I've got a couple viewer questions we'll get to on the corn front. First, I want to get your thoughts on the soybean market. Look at the chart. We are climbing a bit higher here. Your thoughts, bullish on that market?
Yeah, momentum is higher, so we're going to continue to lean higher there, obviously driven by the meal market as well. Argentina is very, very low on their supplies coming off their drought. We know Brazil had a record crop last year. Their neighbor is going to have the supply to meet that, but it's going to lead way for some higher prices here. I mean, China is stepping into this market. I think China's probably hedging some of their bets here, just if these weather situations prolong and it does get hot, dry for an extended period of time in Brazil. I mean, China's doing what they need to, but it is leading way for some higher beans. We have a really tight stocks use here in the States. So again, we're going to have some risk premium continue to be put into this market.
Let me get your thoughts on wheat too. Middle of the week, seeing some momentum in that market. You look at the global stage though, and the U.S. wheat price is still really not competitive here.
Yeah, I mean HRW, some of the higher priced wheat in the world. I mean, if there is any type of story for U.S. wheat, it's going to be the SRW. That is some of the cheapest wheat in the world. But you know, Ukrainian and Russian wheat continues to flood the world market, and so we got to be more competitive with the French market. I use that as kind of the barometer for our markets, and we're still just not there quite. So we're going to have some type of catalyst in the wheat market to really drive it higher. Maybe it's a short covering, maybe it's a technical play, but right now HRW is just a tough market to be in.
Well, let's go back to corn. We'll get to two of our viewer questions that we received this week. First one comes in, asks on corn. What are we going to see first? 425 or 525? Your thoughts?
Yeah, that's a great question, and it depends on the time frame. I do think that we're approaching the year end. I think it's going to be difficult for corn to gather any sort of steam here, especially if it doesn't get pushed by beans or pushed by wheat. I would say that I think that if you get 525, it's a sell. Just given the dynamics of our export market and half of that business is Mexico, we need a little bit more help from the rest of the world. But I'm going to be on the more bullish side here. I think that we can see 525 because there is a lot of unrest around the world. Middle East, there's still issues going on in the Black Sea. So any sort of escalation there could be a price spike where funds say, hey, we got to get in this market now. So 425 is still a ways away. I'm going to say 525.
How long could it take to get there? I mean, and we're really trying to pin you down here, but several months, or could that be something shorter term?
Well, if we get beat down enough here, I think it's a play on basis. So basis is going to get stronger the lower we go. But we get to the February insurance pricing period, I think that could be the opportunity where we get to that 525, especially on the May board or maybe even the March board. I know we're a ways from it, but I would probably say in that February, the March timeframe when we're trying to adjust for these acres, because acres are going to be down next year, according to the USDA baseline numbers that they released earlier this week.
All right, second question, still on corn. This one looking at the short term of the market. This viewer has corn sitting in town, needs to make a decision by the end of the year what to do. Any hope for corn short term before the end of the year to go higher, or should he just pull the trigger still today?
I wish the answer could be yes, it's going a lot higher, but right now I feel corn is spinning its wheels. I think I would much rather just price it here. not take the role and look for some reownership opportunities if the market presents it. Again, I think it's a play on basis here, simply. The lower the price goes, the stronger basis gets, because I think that once you get all the fall work done here, harvest is wrapped up, it's going to become a cash flow needs, and not necessarily we have to sell. We're going to sell what we need for those cash flow. But again, I think that $5 cash is kind of the figure most guys are looking for, at least $5 and above.
A lot of producers you're talking to store and ignore when it comes to soybeans right now?
Well, I'm certainly not telling them to do that. I think that the levels are still higher here. The momentum is still higher. Continue to reward this rally here, because if Brazil does, the weather models do change. If China comes in here and buys more, the question is, if Brazil has the crop, does China actually follow through on those commitments, or do they start canceling? I think the higher we go, we just continue to nickel and dime this market higher.
Let me wrap up with this. A lot of things happening outside the U.S. borders right now. What's most important for producers to pay attention to as it relates to their grain marketing plan?
Try to ignore the noise as best as possible. There's a lot of geo-macro plays right now, geoeconomics. You got to watch what this China's economy does. I mean, what do they do? Do they step in here? Do they start buying because of hedge needs, or do they buy because they're fearful that their own supplies are dwindling? I think the noise aspect can get guys really emotionally tied to their markets, and trying to separate those two and just stick with plans, stick with targets as you advance sales here on rallies, I think is probably the most important thing.